Really got me into it was during COVID, and we got these stimulus checks. I opened my check with what it was, $1,200 or $1,400 or something, Donald Trump's signature, and I immediately knew this isn't money. I just knew this wasn't real money. I just knew it. So I didn't know enough about Bitcoin, but I bought gold instead. I knew gold was real, more real than fiat money anyway. So I bought gold, and then I started investigating about money, learning about money. And I'm not sure what actually triggered me to get deep into Bitcoin, but something did, probably the spiritual aspect of it.
Today, I'm excited to welcome Jerry Katz to the podcast. Jerry explores the intersection of non-duality and Bitcoin, dissolving the boundaries between self and system. His website is nonduality.com. Welcome to the Bitcoin Edge, Jerry.
Hey, thanks, Paula. Thanks for being there. I enjoy your work. And what you bring to the Bitcoin community. And the spiritual aspect, because not everyone's getting into the spirituality. I think anyone who's into Bitcoin, it kind of by default really is into some spiritual realm, whether they know it or not. But some, more so, more consciously so than others, such as yourself and others in the field are also have quite a spiritual outlook. I did an interview with Bram Constein, and he's into that, and other people are as well.
Yeah, there are quite a few.
Pretty cool. I find that really what interests me about Bitcoin, because I come to Bitcoin from the spirituality, non-duality community, whereas I think a lot of people come to spirituality through Bitcoin. I think the opposite. I'm coming to Bitcoin from spirituality, and some come to spirituality from Bitcoin. So I think maybe I have a different perspective there. Plus, I'm old, and I've been into that spirituality for so long. I might have some I don't know, maybe some clues or hints or stuff going on. I don't know. We'll see.
I think you do. And I'd love to hear about it. Do you want to start with the non-duality, or do you want to start with your Bitcoin journey?
Let's talk about this. I remember when Jack Mallers gave a talk at a conference last year, and he compared gold and Bitcoin. He said gold is stuck in the ground, and he said Bitcoin is stuck in time. And that freaked people out because it's so true, and nobody really ever saw it. It was an enlightening moment, I think, for Bitcoin culture. And so to me, what that says to me is that, what follows from that is that gold is mined from the ground, obviously, and Bitcoin is mined in time. So what I find with non-duality and spirituality is that non-duality is mined in spirituality. So we can get into that. But first, I think, you want to get into spirituality, which is, I don't know, you can even look at the origin of the word. Spiritual comes from the Latin spiritus, which means air or breath. And some have said that the word spirituality refers to the breath of God, or, the breath of existence, the breath of truth, whatever words we want to use, but it's the breath of, what's real. And we experience that, right? Everyone has those experiences of, the breath of reality on their neck. Some could be when you're in nature. It could be just a sudden insight into things. It can happen in any kind of circumstances. But to me, that's what a spiritual experience is. It takes you from your small self, which is the part of us that's involved in the troubles of the day, the cares of the day. And the spiritual experience elevates us and reveals to us a sphere, a realm that we might call our big self. It's beyond us. It allows us to feel the touch of God, the kiss of God, the breath of God, or if you don't like the word God, just existence, truth, reality, whatever we want to say. So spirituality to me is whatever exposes us to the breath of God. And anything can do that. All kinds of experiences can do that. And we've all had those experiences, in different ways at different times. So what I find is that non-duality is almost beyond the experience. So non-duality, the word non-duality means not two, meaning that there are not two things. Things are not separate. So from a non-dual point of view, there would be no separation between the small self and the big self. And in a sense, while there are spiritual experiences, non-duality goes beyond all experiences because it kind of goes beyond the mind. The metaphor is right behind me. The ocean is always a great metaphor for that. So you can look at the waves as spiritual experiences of the ocean, but what's real, what's true is the ocean itself. The ocean is the reality. And there's no separation between the waves and the ocean. And that's the realization of non-duality. So there are spiritual experiences. They're important in our lives. I think the only way to have a real effective and optimal life is to be aware of your spiritual side and to value it and to pursue it. And at the same time, I think it's important to be aware of the whole ocean, which all spiritual experiences, all experiences, good, bad, otherwise, kind of dissolve into the ocean. They're not separate from it, but their true nature is simply the ocean itself. So non-duality would put an emphasis on the ocean itself, or on the wholeness of reality itself. So another metaphor I've used is like in Bitcoin, you have the white paper, right? And in non-duality, you got the white paper too, but it's literally a white sheet of paper on which you draw lines and you create your life. So, and we draw spirituality on that white sheet of paper, on the white paper of non-duality. But I think the non-dual perspective, again, like I said, would certainly pursue those spiritual experiences, but at the same time, it would keep the white page, the blank page, in mind. Do you know Van Morrison, songwriter Van Morrison?
Yeah.
Brown-eyed girl. If I could sing, I'd do in a concert, but I can't. Tupelo honey and stuff like that. So Van Morrison is like an enlightened guy. And he said, look, I'm enlightened, but when I have to write a song, I look at a blank sheet of paper, again, the white paper, and I have to pretend I'm not enlightened. And then he can get involved in all the dramas of life and the loves, the hates, the small self, all that stuff. And then he can write a song and he can become poetic and write a song. But he never loses sight of the white page because that's reality. And again, that's the non-dual point of view, is always to keep in mind and to keep into the forefront the white paper, the white page. Bitcoin's the same thing. You keep in front of you. You got to keep the white paper in the forefront because that's like the truth, the source of Bitcoin. So I hope I've tried to draw a little bit of a line between spirituality and non-duality. So I don't know, did I?
Yeah, you did. When I think of non-duality then as a white paper, that would signify neither good nor bad. It just is.
Beyond good and bad, yeah. Just is, yeah. Beyond the dualities.
And then as spiritual beings, we are here living a human experience connected to everything, including each other, but also living as an ego self.
Yeah. As an ego self, because you need an ego to survive. So, I mean, the key, I think, again, to an effective and optimal life is to minimize the ego strategies to make us feel good about ourselves, which I think we all do to some degree. But you want to be aware of when we're doing that and to minimize it and to minimize our ego. We don't have to kill our ego. We're not talking about ego death necessarily, but we're talking about death of the unnecessary ego junk that I guess clings to all of us in some way or another. I mean, I'm here, I'm trying to look nice and look good. And I don't know if I do or not. I try to impress people, but I live on the ocean, I got all kinds of ego junk going, but I think it's important to be aware of it and to realize it's nothing and to be able to let go of it in a second. And, Shakespeare said the readiness is all. It's the readiness for everything to just drop away. Because it's just lines written on the white paper of non-duality. It's all nothing. It's only the white paper that means anything. And that has no meaning either, because there's no one there to realize meaning or lack of meaning. There's no separation. For somebody to realize meaning or lack of meaning would mean that there's separation. And in the non-dual nature of reality, there's no separation. There's just what is, like you were saying.
And so when would you feel this the most? When you're in meditation, when you're by the ocean?
It's just always there. Yeah, I mean, meditation, you can say is ongoing, or there's no meditation. But there's relaxation. Like if I got to measure my blood pressure, I got to relax because I start getting nervous. What's my blood pressure going to be? So, I mean, there are, in the course of the relative life that we live, there's definitely have to relax someday. Look, doing interviews I find very stressful, and I got to relax, take deep breaths and relax, and that's a form of meditation. But it's more in the relative sense, so that I can function, and try to sound like I know what I'm talking about. But the meditation for non-dual realization, I don't find there's any meditation there, because that's like saying, who is there to meditate? If I think there's someone who can meditate, then in order to realize non-duality, then I'll never realize it, because the nature of non-duality is non-separation. So, but in the relative world, where we got to function and deal with the troubles of the day, yeah, there's relaxation, there's meditation, maybe have a glass of wine or a cigar or something. I've just met my neighbors. She just came back from the Dominican Republic, lives right next door to me. And she brought me a package of Davidoff cigars. They're like the best cigars like in the world, practically. I was so impressed. I'm tempted to light one up. I don't know, before we're over, before we're finished, I might light one. I don't know.
Wonderful.
We were talking about consciousness and all that. It was pretty cool. I said, I'm going to do an interview on this topic. So, it was a good rehearsal. So, no, I wouldn't say, to answer your question, I don't really meditate for any non-dual awareness. I meditate for functional, for operating functionally in the world.
Very interesting. So we'll come back to that, but tell us a little bit about your Bitcoin journey.
Bitcoin, I've always heard about Bitcoin, never knew anything about it. I always thought I just never thought it was anything. I didn't know. I just see it in the news once in a while. What really got me into it was during COVID, and we got these stimulus checks. I opened my check, what it was, $1,200 or $1,400 or something, Donald Trump's signature. And I immediately knew, this isn't money. I just knew this wasn't real money. I just knew it. So I didn't know enough about Bitcoin, but I bought gold instead. I knew gold was real, more real than fiat money anyway. So I bought gold, and then I started investigating about money, learning about money. And I'm not sure what actually triggered me to get deep into Bitcoin. Something did, probably the spiritual aspect of it. And from that point, I did all the read. I read the books, the 6 or 8 books, all the ones everyone reads. And, listen to endless podcasts, all the YouTube videos, all the interviews, all the stuff everyone does, right? And I was on X, and I just started seeing what's going on there, and just started reading and doing some writing and considering and realizing what Bitcoin was about. Yeah, that's what started. So the thing that triggered it, again, was the realization of the fiat nature of money. The money was fake. And that's what triggered it. That's what triggered it for me. And I'm still always, we're all always learning in this field, right? And Bitcoin culture is always just endless, because changes in the world are happening, and Bitcoin protocol has to respond. The developers and everyone part of the community has to respond to it immediately. So we're always learning in that way, staying on top of it. And it's it's a great journey. It's a spiritual journey. It's a non-dual journey. And if somebody wants to live a spiritual life, you can do it 100% through Bitcoin, because the mathematical nature of Bitcoin, all the qualities we know about, the decentralization, transparency, trustlessness, it's all very intimately connected with how the cosmos works. Any spiritual path that links you directly with the cosmos and the nature of the universe is a good spiritual path. It's like follow it. It's like following a guru. It's like following a mantra. Just go for it. You can have a spiritual life that way.
Tell us a little bit more about how Bitcoin is spiritual to you.
Well, like I said, already come from spirituality and a lot of spiritual experiences going back to when I was a kid. And I'm like 75 now. So you're looking at like 65, 70 years of spiritual consideration. So when I come into Bitcoin, I already have a lot of spiritual stuff going on. But I think what I see in Bitcoin and what I like about it is that it's decentralized, because I find that I'm part of the non-duality community, which I was on the ground floor of that in 1997. And I realized it's a decentralized community. It's a decentralized culture. So I immediately saw that Bitcoin culture and Bitcoin community in the Bitcoin protocol, which really includes the community, is also decentralized. I think that's where I found an immediate parallel, an immediate resonance. And also Bitcoin is, to use the words of Nikola Tesla, Bitcoin is tied to the whalework of the universe. It's like a living engine tied to the whalework of the universe, meaning it's connected intimately with the fundamental laws of nature, of the cosmos, mathematically. Although I don't really understand mathematics or cryptography, I do understand that there's a very intimate and profound and deep connection, even on a God level. And reading Eric Kaysen kind of convinced me of that. I really like his intensity and his almost religious conviction about Bitcoin, and that kind of pushed me into realizing all that. Yeah. And non-duality also is tied to the whalework of the universe, because it's the nature of reality. So there are parallels there between Bitcoin and non-duality, very close parallels that bear on the nature of truth and of who you really are. And what the heck else is there to be alive other than to figure what that is? And to appreciate that and to pay attention to that as much as you can all the time, and to live your life in the light of that desire to know your true nature.
Yeah. You mentioned decentralization, and what decentralization means to me is that we aren't controlled by anybody, that we take responsibility for our own money and our own store of energy in this case. Is that part of what you mean when you talk about decentralization?
So there's a difference between decentralization and living a life without a center. The life of decentralization, I think, is exactly what you said. It's living a life basically in the flow of things, because the flow of things itself has no center. Like what's the center of the ocean or a river, or the flow of life? What's the center of the flow of life? There is none. And so the more your life is in accord with how life just flows naturally, and I don't know if we can do that 100%, but we can be aware of it almost 100%. That's a decentralized life. Now, a life without a center is a little bit different. That's to say that gets into the non-dual realm, because the non-dual realm will say there is no. If you have a life without a center, you basically don't exist. You are that flow. You're totally that flow. Like the wave is the ocean. It's totally the ocean. But a decentralized life will say, well, there's some separation from the ocean. I'm aware of the ocean. I'm aware of, like I said, that the white paper of non-duality. But I'm living a decentralized life that's sketched or etched upon the white paper of non-duality. I'm kind of mixing metaphors with the ocean and that white paper thing. But the whole idea is that a life can be lived in a decentralized way with the flow of life. And then from the non-dual point of view, there is no life living a decentralized life, because it's a life without a center in the first place. So it can't be decentralized. So again, I made a difference there between kind of the spiritual decentralization of living in the flow of life and the non-dual life without a center, where there is nobody to live a life of decentralization. I think I'm trying to bring to non-duality, what I'm trying to bring to Bitcoin community and culture is the whole thing of non-duality. It goes it's mind within. It's stuck in spirituality, and just to play on Jack Mahler's, it's mind within. It can be mind within spirituality. So I don't know how clear I am about this. I'm going to ask you, Paul. I don't know. Am I making any sense here? Tell me what's going on. I don't know.
All making sense. I don't fully understand the difference between spirituality and non-duality, because I don't understand non-duality well enough. Maybe you want to comment on that before I ask you the next
I'll
question.
comment on it. It took me years and years and years to figure out the non-duality. So when I got into non-duality, I didn't know the word, but I was sitting out. I used to go to a restaurant. I was sitting at the counter, and a guy next to me is reading a book. It's like an oversized, big hardback book. It was like, getting into my napkin and stuff. And I said to him, "What are you reading?" He said, Upanishads. The Upanishads, of course, a great non-dual spiritual work. I never heard of the word non-duality. Very, very few people ever had heard the word non-duality. This was in the 80s, probably early 80s. So I asked him, what is it about? because I knew it was spiritual, but I didn't really know what it was about. And he didn't want to answer me. He was like trying to eat his food and read. He didn't want to bother with me. But so he looked this way and he looked up and he looked around and he finally stares right at me. And he says, non-duality. And it hit me. It hit me like my whole body changed. Like it was a transformational moment. I didn't know what non-duality was, never heard of the word, but I knew I had to figure out what the heck it was. So I spent years. I didn't understand it. I spent years trying to figure it out, and I read some of the most profound, scriptures, ancient scriptures. After some time, it became clear. The experience of non-duality became obvious, and I think the best thing, if non-duality isn't obvious to someone, to say, it's not obvious, and you can pursue it if you want, but you don't have to, because if it means a life without a center, it means you kind of disappear, and that's not necessarily a good thing. Spiritual enlightenment isn't necessarily a good thing. It can really mess up your life. I know a woman who I used to run these non-duality meetings in person here in Nova Scotia, and so one day a woman comes in, and she says, tells her story. She was just an ordinary woman, had no interest in spirituality. She had a kid, she had a job, she had a family, just the ordinary life we're talking about, the small self, involved in the cares of the day, the troubles of the day, no big self stuff going on, and suffered depression, always had depression. It would come, it would go, but always basically a depressive personality. And then she said during the period of a couple of days, things started to change. She felt like her body vibrating or something. She didn't know what it was. But suddenly one day, everything drops away, all her anxiety, all her stress, all her depressive tendencies. This fell away. And what was left was just like a nothingness, just existence itself, just this flow of life, just this really with non-dual reality, just reality. It wasn't spiritual. It was just what is. There's no name for it, no label, no spirituality label. It's what it was. So she came to the meetup and told us this story. And after she had this experience, after a few days, her daughter looked at her and said, "Where's my mommy? What happened to mommy?" So she went on a pursuit of truth. She just basically Googled, what's true? What's going on? What's reality? And it brought her to a non-dual search. She went to different gurus and this and that, and finally was able to stabilize in her condition, her state of non-dual awareness, and was able to function and live life. So this whole spiritual enlightenment thing isn't necessarily a pretty thing. It's not about peace and bliss and happiness. It can rip your life apart. So it's not necessarily recommended, but a spiritual life, more based on like the sense of being, the sense of I amness, the sense of decentralization, is a good, healthy, effective life, which can bring about optimal living. It's important to pursue, I think, the decentralized life, the spiritual life. I don't think it's important you don't want to pursue the non-dual life unless it happens to you, or unless it's a choiceless thing that you must do. It's not something you want to try out or get in on as some cool thing. It has to be what absolutely has to happen. Again, here I am trying to discern between spirituality and non-duality in as many ways as I can.
So let me just explain. For me, having a spiritual connection to something bigger than us gives many people the sense that we're not alone. So there is something out there that can sometimes help us along when we don't know what to do on our own. And like you mentioned, it could come in a moment while you're at the ocean, or it come from an intuition, or it could come from anything. Whether that's correct or not, I think that's why many people are in religion. And most Bitcoiners I speak to are religious in some way. What you're trying to bring to the Bitcoin community is another side. And honestly, non-duality sounds very peaceful and loving.
Yeah, non-duality, as I see it, really doesn't even have any qualities. Remember, it's the white paper.
Right.
The white paper of non-duality has nothing on it. You got to pretend you don't know anything about non-duality. Then you can start doing whatever you want, write songs, get into trouble, go to Vegas, get drunk, I don't know, make a fool of yourself. It's all etchings on the white paper of non-duality. So we got to really be strict. If we're getting into spirituality, we can talk about love and peace. which is essential for the optimal life. We need to live like that. And I really like Tomer Strolight does a lot with that, and I enjoy his works based on that. So I'm just trying to annoy the Bitcoin community and get myself into trouble with the Bitcoin community by talking about non-duality. That's all. I'm just a troublemaker. What can I say?
You're having fun. And I just meant that you are very peaceful about it. You're presenting it. You can take it, like it or not.
I hope, you have to be able to let go. Shakespeare said the readiness is all. And like I said earlier, it's the readiness to let go of everything. It's the readiness to let go of your life. But if you have a life without a center, you don't have a life. You're not alive and you're not dead. You are the flow of life. You are existence. It's what you are.
On X, you have a great quote, and you posted it recently by Priscilla Francis. The magic isn't in the universe deciding what to give me, it's in me deciding what to receive. What does this mean to you?
Well, first, Priscilla Francis, I've known for probably over 20 years. She's a Facebook friend. She's a brilliant woman and a total non-dual chick, if you ask me. She lives in Malaysia and a great writer. It really bears on things like the law of attraction, I think. And I know that's been an important part of your life, your studies with Bob Proctor. Basically, it's the law of attraction, as I understand it, isn't it? Yeah. And I consider that like spirituality, and I consider it important. I follow a law of attraction studies myself. I've looked at Bob Proctor stuff, Abraham, Bashar, Neville Goddard. I listen to those people. So yeah, you can say you're in the absolute realm of non-duality where no one exists, but at the same time, I got to pay the rent on this damn beach house, right? So I need to. I mean, I manifested this place, right? So now I gotta figure out how to make some money. So yeah, I agree with the law of attraction. I think the law of attraction is basically what Priscilla is saying, if I understand her, is that you have to know what you want, and what you know really needs to be something that you must have. That's choiceless. It's choiceless, right? You can't just willy-nilly, want the Lamborghini in your driveway. It's got to be something that you have coming and that you're watching come. It's like in the distance, you can see like a piece of paper blowing in the distance, like a block away, and it's coming to you. It is blowing toward you, but it might blow into a doorway. It might blow up a street lamp. It's going to blow here. It's going to blow there, but it's coming to you. And you stand there and you wait. And eventually it just blows right to your feet and it's there. So law of attraction, I think, to me, works that way. You can't just pretend. You can't just make up that piece of paper in the distance. Again, we're dealing with paper. Maybe it's a white paper. Who knows? But I think that's what I hear Priscilla saying.
Yeah.
That you'll get from the universe what you want to receive. I think that's what she said. But you have to know what you want to receive, and you'll get it. Then at some point, you start to get so much that you have to learn how to demanifest, how to eliminate some things from your life, how to minimize, and how to stop manifesting. I mean, you can manifest, all over the place. But at some point, it becomes a game. You don't need to play it. But you do need to play manifestation game to some degree because, you need to have a life. You need to have a good life. How does that align with your thoughts on law of attraction?
Yeah. For me, the basic law of attraction is your thoughts create your reality. And what you think about most in life is what tends to happen. This has been shown in everything from people who go to the moon. That started in their thoughts first, and then we take action to make it happen. Yes, there has to be belief that you can do it, but it always starts with your thoughts. And for me, when I went through a particularly bad phase and was thinking the worst, I tended to attract more of that to me. And the way I got out of it was with gratitude and looking for the good in life. And it has changed my life. And I think this does relate to Bitcoin in that Bitcoin doesn't fix everything. We need Bitcoin to improve our finances and store our energy, but it's also important to have a good mindset and believe that you deserve to have freedom and financial freedom and abundance in your life as well. I think that's very important because if you can't get past that, then how are you going to get to Bitcoin?
Yeah, no, it's essential. You have to have the right mindset. Bitcoin is a whole package. It's not just getting Bitcoin and buying Bitcoin, holding Bitcoin. It's buying into a bigger life and a better life, and holding on to that bigger and better life, and constantly working on it. A gratitude practice is an important thing to do. I think for anyone can do that, and it can be done throughout the day at all times. It's it's a way of aligning you with the bigger picture of Bitcoin. And Bitcoin, like I said, it's a spiritual. It can be a spiritual teacher. It can be a guru. It is, if you use it that way. So yeah, so you straightened out your life just through your, like you said, through your thoughts.
Yeah.
But sometimes you wonder, like, what is the source of these thoughts? I mean, what makes us? How do we know? We know what that piece of paper in the distance is. Well, if you're suffering, then it's obvious that it's something that would relieve the suffering. If you're in pain. So do you have any thoughts on that? Like, of the source of the thoughts? Well, I think that's, if you're suffering, that's the source of. That's going to be the source of, positive thoughts. You want to get out of that. And the part of you that knows you're suffering is really, that's the enlightened part of you, because it knows it's in trouble. It knows it's free and it can't get out. But that's the free part of us. The part of us that knows we don't know anything, or the part of us that knows we're in prison, is like the freest part of us, I think. And we can just kind of take our stand in that part of us instead of the part of us that's limited.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what I'm talking about, but I think I'm trying to express something about freedom, about our human nature that's free. And the part of us that thinks we're not free is free, because it's free to think that.
Yeah, that's true. There's a watcher of the thoughts, right? You can be meditating and a thought pops into your mind, and you can notice that you're thinking a thought, but who's thinking that thought?
Yeah, that watcher then would be that place of freedom. I mean, there's a great non-dual inquiry called, if you want to realize non-duality, you do this inquiry. It's called Who Am I? And you just ask yourself, who am I? And some answers may come, responses may come. Often it could be, well, I'm this guy, this woman, I'm this form, I'm doing this work, I got this life. And then in response to that, you would say, well, okay, well, to whom is that thought arising? And then you might say, well, it's arising to me. And then the response is, okay, well, who am I? So the who am I inquiry is always leading you back to that question. Who am I? Who am I? What am I? Who am I? And what is the answer? Well, is there an answer? That's just a basic inquiry. But when it's taken to its greatest extent, I guess, you become the question. And if there's an answer, the answer is everything. I look here, I'm looking at my other pair of glasses. Well, that's the answer. There's a cigarette lighter. That's an answer. Everything is who I am. Everything is the answer. And when you reach that point, you're no longer asking, because the person who was asking then is just basically gone. Is basically just part of everything else. It's part of existence. So I don't know if I quite communicated that. I think let me just summarize and say, if there's an answer to the question, who am I? It's existence itself. I think that's what I want to say. It's the white paper. It goes back to the non-duality white paper. Who am I? It's the non-duality. Even in Bitcoin, if you ask who am I or what is Bitcoin, you can maybe look at the white paper, I guess. Some people might say, I don't know. I don't know what the Bitcoiners would say. I feel a little intimidated. I'm not a Bitcoiner like a lot of people like yourself and all these other people and, the Jeff Booths and all. I'm so far from all those people. I'm like a beginner in Bitcoin. Even though I've read several books and I've put in my 1,000 hours, I'm still a beginner, really. I don't understand a lot about it. So I feel really privileged to be able to talk to you and maybe be, a little bit, I think I'm on the fringes of Bitcoin culture, but thank you for dragging me into the fold a little bit. And Bram Constein did the same. He was brave enough to bring me into the Bitcoin world. I don't know how much I'm in it, but
I think you're in it. You've read and done all that work. You know a lot. And even just to understand the white paper, tell us a little bit more about what you get from the white paper.
At some point, you got to read the white paper. It's a lot easier to read the books and to read the X things. At some point, you got to sit down with the white paper, which I did, which I've done. If there's a pilgrimage in Bitcoin, it's a pilgrimage to the white paper. You got to go there. And I found some good YouTube videos that helped explain it to me. So I was able to understand it. except for like the mathematical parts. I didn't try to understand that. But I appreciate and I feel I understand the mathematical connection to the operation of the universe. So that's what makes Bitcoin so powerful. It's the universe. You're basically aligning with the universe. You're like 1 degree of separation away from, understanding how the universe operates.
You mean by being connected to energy?
Yeah, mathematically, yeah. Connected to energy or the universe, whatever we want to call it. And then the integrity of the blockchain these are things you just meditate. These are like mantras, gurus. And then the protocol in general, and some people are developers and stuff, and they got their own thing going. I don't know. I can't identify with those people. I don't know what the heck they're doing, but they're doing all the stuff they do, which is, they're geniuses, and I'm glad they're doing it. So there's a lot going on in the Bitcoin community. And I think anyone who's into it is into a part of it. So some people, maybe a guy like Jeff Booth can grasp the whole of it, but I can grasp a small fraction of it. I think I can grasp it. That's kind of where I stand. So I feel like an outsider to Bitcoin. But
absolutely not. I would call you an insider.
Okay. I'll take whatever I can get.
You're just bringing another perspective from non-duality and telling us how they connect. I spoke to somebody yesterday about anarchy and how that relates to Bitcoin. And there's just so many different rabbit holes to go down.
And it's true in the non-duality community too. Wherever you go, there's non-duality. Organic farming was started by a guy who discovered non-duality. He was a scientist, Masanuko Fukuoka in Japan. He was a scientist, and his life was miserable. He was working in a laboratory. He hated his work. His personal life was a mess. I mean, his life, he was like down. He was like finished. And so he leaves his laboratory one day, and he was dead tired, hadn't slept for a couple of days. His life was a mess. And he walks up onto a hill, a grassy hill, and he just lays down and falls asleep, dead asleep. And when he wakes up in the morning, a flock of geese is flying overhead. And in that moment, it hit him. He understood reality. He knew what he had to do. His life changed in a second. Just like that woman, that mother, I said, this happens to people. And he was able to, quit his science job eventually. And he knew he had to go into farming. And he wrote a book called The One Seed Revolution, a great book on, they just basically started organic farming. Really worth reading that book. It's very non-dualistic, spiritual and non-dualistic.
I love organic farming and I love organic food. Yeah, that's a whole nother topic. Are you also into health?
I am, but I'm a carnivore. I'm not into organic food. I'm not into organic meat. I just only eat meat and eggs, and that's it. And 2 or 3 cookies a month. I work at a place where they do a lot of baking, and there's always snacks, and I can't resist it. So I have probably, maybe 1 cookie a week. Did I just go from 3 a month to 1 a week? Maybe 5 a week. Maybe I live on Oreos. I don't know. I can't tell the truth anymore. No, I'm a carnivore, and I will occasionally cheat with a cookie. So
it's good.
And I think that's healthy. I think a lot of people, in Bitcoin are carnivores. I don't know why that is, but I think it's a matter of minimalism. You see what's real in the world, you see what's fiat, and you move toward the real. And you see all the fiat food. I mean, I think I read that book on fiat food. Was it by Saifedean? I think he wrote that. And everything's fiat. When you get into Bitcoin, you're more heightened awareness of what's fake, and you stay away from it. But I started my carnivore journey before. I've been doing this for over 10 years before I got into Bitcoin. But it's healthy. I find it healthy. But anything that's real food, if it's organic, vegan is the same. As long as it's organic and real, there's no difference. You're avoiding the processed foods.
Exactly. Yeah. Whether it's vegetables or meat, the more real food that is not produced. Yeah.
Whatever suits your body.
Exactly.
If it's vegetables, eat vegetables.
And finding the balance. Having a cookie here and there is fine. Just finding balance. Yeah.
You're getting me hungry. And I have a cigar once in a while. I smoke 1 or 2 cigars a month.
And you've got some good ones.
Maybe 3 or 4.
You got ones now.
Yeah, I chain smoke them. I don't know. I smoke about 2 or 3 a month.
Well, tell us how Bitcoin has changed you.
I wouldn't say Bitcoin. Well, financially, I don't want to talk about my financial life, but I will say that, I've gotten out of the inflationary circle, and I have a diversified portfolio, but I'm mostly where I should be. But at my age, though, I mean, I'm 75. How long am I going to live? So Bitcoin is more of an insurance policy. And if I live to be old, really old, then an inflation kicks in, and I don't have money. And if I rely on fiat money, I'm not going to have enough to, take care of myself. Maybe I'll need, a 24-hour caretaker when I'm in my 90s, if I live that long. I don't know. So Bitcoin becomes like an insurance policy for me, and it's really important, and it's substantial.
Well, I was just going to say, because yes, you're retired now, but it takes away the stress of having to worry, am I going to have an... And then also for me, if I can save my money in sound money that is going up in value, I can do what I love rather than just having to work for money and fiat money. So it's important.
Yeah, it's important. It's a wise thing. It's a wise thing to do. But it hasn't changed me any spiritual. It's amplified, enhanced my spiritual life, and my non-duality life, my non-duality community, maybe. It's done that and continues to do that. And just like doing an interview, being interviewed and being forced to talk about it is, I don't know, it's a good spiritual experience for me. It's and that's directly related to Bitcoin. I mean, Bitcoin did it. Bitcoin's brought me here. You brought me here. I don't know why, but somehow I resonated with something. So I appreciate that.
And I really appreciate you coming on. And your background is just spiritual for me. That says it all.
I've been into it for too long, I've been into the spirituality literally since I was a kid. And the non-duality community I actually started in 97, 98. It's been going for like 26, 27 years. And some of the original members of the community are still there. We're all growing old together. Like Priscilla Francis, who you mentioned earlier, she's been in the community for probably 20 years. Started as a young girl. And she's still young. One interesting thing I noticed between the non-duality community and the Bitcoin community is that in the Bitcoin community, a lot of people, like you asked me, how did you get into Bitcoin? That's a standard question in the Bitcoin community. In the non-duality community, it used to be a standard question. But as it matured and grew and became more mainstream, nobody asks that question anymore. How did you get into non-duality? We used to ask it. And you'll find as Bitcoin community matures, which is a great sign, another pointing that it's early, still early in Bitcoin, as we all know. In Bitcoin, in 5 and 10 years, you're not going to ask people. When you're interviewing them, you're not going to ask them how they got into Bitcoin, because it'll be so baked into people's lives. That shows how early it is, which we know, right? Which we really know. And that's just, to me, that's a point where I was able to discover by comparing non-duality community to a Bitcoin community.
That's so interesting. Are any of your friends in non-duality in Bitcoin?
They hate it. I can name two or three will follow, 2 or 3. Others are like, stop. I have a non-duality group on Facebook. It's called Non-Duality Salon. It started in 98. It was an email list, so just emails. The people there now are a lot of them are older, and they want nothing to do with Bitcoin. When I post on my group, what I have posted about Bitcoin, it's like, just stop posting, start your own group. We don't want to hear about Bitcoin. And I'm the owner of the group, I'm the moderator. But I say, okay, I won't, So no, they don't want to hear about it. Part of that's a boomer mentality, because we're all kind of older, I think. But it's not just boomers. So yeah, it's like out of the thousands of people on there, maybe 3 people have an interest in Bitcoin, and maybe 2 people actually buy it. There's no interest. We are early. Keep HODLing.
Like you said, we're early. Work on those non-duality people. But yeah, it's like they say in Bitcoin, you get there when you're ready. And I'm sure in non-duality too, you get there when you're ready.
Well, yeah, you can't force any of that stuff. You get there when you're ready. And I think in both cases, you're always early. You're always going to be early to Bitcoin. In a way, Bitcoin, well, in the case of non-duality, I mean, both Bitcoin and non-duality kind of transcend time anyway, in a way, because they're so connected with the essence of the universe, of reality, which is timeless, that you're always fresh. You're always a beginner. You're always early. there's always the sense, I mean, I don't know if you pick up on, I'm sure you do, when you're in Bitcoin community, Bitcoin culture, and you're, reading all the posts and you're seeing what's going on, there's always this sense of freshness. There's always a sense of newness. It's not stale. I mean, the price may hang out at a certain price, and you may wonder, is it going up? Is it going down? The price may be a little stale. But what's happening, but the activity is always fresh. It's always new. It's always early. It's always, maybe it's more accurate to say it's always the now, right? It's always the ever-present now, which kind of transcends being early and late. It's always the now for Bitcoin. It's always the now for non-duality. And when you're ready for it, if you're ever ready for it, maybe you won't be. You don't have to be. No law says you have to be. But if you're ready for it, it'll be now. It'll be early. It'll be when the time's ready.
I love that. What a great place to end. Thank you so much for being on the show today, Jerry. Where can people find you?
Non-Duality.com. I have some just links there. I have some ebooks. I have a book on non-duality community, and I haven't published anything on Bitcoin yet, but maybe I'll do something there. I just have some books of like writings and photography and stuff like that. It'll get you into the non-dual mood. I got a book on architecture and non-duality, which is a whole other thing, even bears on Bitcoin, but that's another hour discussion we can get into someday. So
yeah.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for your work. I enjoy your work, and I watched the video with the gentleman who spoke about the psychoactive drugs. We never got into that, but I think we got onto that. We discussed the themes around it. So I appreciate what you're doing. Thanks.
Thank you, and we'll talk about it in a couple of months to a year.
Let's talk again. It was fun. I enjoyed talking to you.
Thanks, Jerry.
Thank you. Okay. Bye-bye.